The Almost Saga. As almost everyone in the English-speaking world knows, it all began on a hot August evening in rural mid-America. Frank and Alma Almost were in their 1959 Ford pickup on their way to the Grange Hall for a community square dance. Alma was a little out of sorts because it had taken Frank and their neighbor Lester Klukas almost an hour to load their old upright piano into the back of the truck, and they were running a little late. Frank was driving with one hand, alternately wiping the sweat from his forehead and pulling the damp collar away from the back of his neck. Alma was looking out of the open window, trying not to be crabby.
What in the world was that?
Alma said, almost under her breath. Then, tugging at her husband's moist shirt sleeve, she shouted,
Frank, stop the truck. There's something in that wheat field back there.
The old brake squeaked and the pickup lurched to a halt, causing the heavy piano to tip and slide in the process. In the wink of an eye, Alma was out the door, rushing toward the spot which had caught her attention. As she and Frank grew near, they heard what at first sounded like the faint voices of very young children reciting nursery rhymes. Following the sounds, the Almosts came to a large clearing, and there they saw them. Two beautiful young boys, almost 4 years old, sitting Indian style, side by side, singing in perfect harmony. Well, the story is so familiar now that it almost doesn't bear repeating. How Frank and Alma picked up the little boys, only after they'd finished their song, of course, and carried them back to the road. How Frank noticed that the piano was hanging precariously off the tailgate of the truck. How in his eagerness to move the old bald one back into the pickup, Frank forgot that the tailgate was too weak to support him. How when Frank slipped, the piano fell off the truck with all its deadly weight headed for his chest and head. How just as Frank was about to be crushed, time seemed to stand still. When the dust cleared, there were the boys, their tiny arms holding the piano in midair. Lovely, innocent smiles on their lovely, innocent faces. Miraculously, Frank Almost was unhurt. After that, the Almosts put ads in the local paper and signs up at the Esso station and the IGA. They contacted the JCs and the police stations in 22 counties, trying to get a clue as to the boys' origins. Only a single piece of information emerged, and that seemed almost too odd to be important. A farmhand whose car had overheated near the spot where the boys had been found had seen two large UPS trucks speeding away in opposite directions shortly before the incident had occurred. Other than that, the circumstances of the boys' arrival remained a complete mystery. The youngsters, whom the Almosts called Mike and Steve after beloved past presidents of the local Lions Club, grew tall and straight in the warm bosom of their new home. Their interest in music was a great joy to choir member Alma, who taught them all the Christian hymns, although she always secretly thought they took too much license with the rock in Rock of Ages. From Frank, a Maytag repairman with a lot of mechanical know-how and a lot of time on his hands, Mike and Steve learned almost everything about electronics. Soon they were blowing fuse after fuse, attempting to amplify and distort every remotely musical device in the house. Alma's pots and pans became syndromes, and the piano, now in the Smithsonian, became a forerunner of the DX7. The boys were almost 2 decades ahead of their time. And then came the sad day when Mike and Steve had to leave. It was almost a month after Frank had suffered a fatal heart attack, trying to moonwalk at one of the boys' jam sessions. In a scene so familiar to us now, the boys and Alma stood amidst the amber waves of grain and said goodbye.
Thanks, Mother.
Alma, who was almost in tears, said that she knew that the boys had important work to do and that she would listen for them on Prairie Home Companion. Mike and Steve held her close for a moment and thanked her for everything. She then walked sadly back to the farmhouse, and the young men hopped a bus for Nashville, where they checked into the Hall of Fame Motel leaped the UA Tower in a single bound, and signed a recording contract with MTM Records. The rest, as they say, is almost musical history.
That's right. Don't tell me love is kind, it leaves me lonely every time and time. Love my